May 2nd, 2026. That was the date when David Benavidez became a unified WBA and WBO cruiserweight champion. And this is making him one of the best boxers of modern days. Because for a very long time he was a WBC super middleweight champion. Then he decided to move up, and he became a light heavyweight champion. And being a unified champion of WBC and WBA, he decided to make an other one gap, and won his new titles. That thing is fantastic, because right before that, he was almost invisible, despite that he was so dominant and bright. When Canelo Alvarez was a super middleweight champion, Benavidez expected his chance for a very long time being a WBC interim super middleweight champion. Then he got tired to wait and moved up, and that fight was also for an interim title. But for now, David Benavidez is a bright superstar, and he is performing in a lot of great fights and main events, which are very important for boxing. For a very long time, the typical drawing of a boxing match was the main event, and a weak undercard, full of no names. Even the fighters who were very close to the main event, they were invisible, until Turki Al-Sheikh decided to bring the sport to Saudi Arabia. United Arab Emirates wanted to make a capital city of MMA fights in Abu Dhabi. When Saudi Arabia started to open up, they decided to make the same thing with boxing. That's how the Riyadh season appeared on the line. And starting from the fight Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou begun the long history of modern boxing. But when he made the day of reckoning, that thing showed a UFC's model, where everybody in that card is a superstar, and no more pay-per-view. That's how they started to make a lot of great events, and of course the main boxing stars were signed with Riyadh season. David Benavidez was a part of PBC, one of the main promotions in the world, under Showtime Sports, which was suddenly closed in 2023. That channel was one of the greatest. But when PBC switched to the Amazon Prime, everything became pale. That was a chance for Turkey to grab Canelo Alvarez and David Benavidez, because when David became a WBC super middleweight champion for the first time, he was stripped of it because of positive test for cocaine. That is restricted, despite that somewhere it is legal. But Benavidez received an other one chance to fight for the gold, and won it. Then happened a very bad thing. Benavidez was stripped of his title because of weight failure. According to the rules, you must show the exact weight on the scales. You can't overweight for a pound. That's how Canelo Alvarez became a WBC super middleweight champion. Then he became an undisputed champion. That's how he became the main boxer in the world. But in his shade, David Benavidez tried to walk through his opponents. And on the paper, that fight should be a fight between two Mexicans. And the plans were to make this on Mexican Independence Day in September, as Canelo loves to fight every single year. But unfortunately, the plans were ruined. That was a very great setup, because Benavidez became an interim WBC super middleweight champion. At the same time, when Canelo Alvarez started to make a lot of super fights, he made a light heavyweight bout, then a crossover fight with Gennady Golovkin, who is even not a super middleweight fighter, then a super fight with Jermell Charlo. He was a light middleweight undisputed champion, and that fight was the first undisputed versus undisputed clash. Of course, David Benavidez got tired to wait and moved up. Right from the beginning, it was the fight with Alexander Gvozdyk for an interim WBC title again. David Benavidez successfully won it. There are not so many fighters as you can imagine who can move up and win the title being already a champion. Usually the fighters love to stay at where they are. They are only moving up when they are not able to make the weight anymore, or they lost the fight. Of course, you can name Shakur Stevenson, or Devin Haney, or even Terence Crawford. This is an exception. That's why you are talking about them all the time. David Benavidez is not the same type of a fighter. In that weight class, he started to fight with light heavyweight fighters. And for this time, he was a side A of the fight. Right before that, he was a side B. Now he decides. When Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev made 2 fights for the undisputed championship, the winner had no choice because David Benavidez became the main challenger for the title. Dmitry Bivol decided to vacate his title because he went for a surgery. That's how Benavidez automatically became a WBC champion and fought with David Morrell for his WBA regular title. Of course, Turkey decided to sign him up and make him a part of Riyadh season by giving him Anthony Yarde. This fight was a setup for Canelo Alvarez, who suddenly lost the fight with Terence Crawford. From the beginning, this fight was not planned. According to the plan, Canelo Alvarez had a fight with William Skull, because this fight was especially for Riyadh, not for America as he used to fight. And the same with David Benavidez, who fought with Anthony Yarde. This fight was also for Saudi Arabia, and as the result they must face each other in light heavyweight or in the super middleweight. But Canelo Alvarez showed the most boring fight of his career. And what happened next? They decided to make a fight with Terence Crawford, basically to destroy Canelo Alvarez, because he started to lose. But Turkey decided to make something bigger from David Benavidez, because Canelo is not returning after that fight with Terence Crawford for a very long time. Of course, the fight with David Benavidez is the most profitable fight for him. Everybody is expecting this. He could stay in light heavyweight for one more fight, but because of nothing what to do, he decided to move up and fight in cruiserweight with Gilberto Ramirez. That thing is also very strange. First, this is a cruiserweight champion, despite that he was in super middleweight sometimes before, and he also fought for light heavyweight gold. This fighter is very tall, and it will be hard for him to cut the weight to make this weight, of course. Cruiserweight is very comfortable weight class, but not for Benavidez. When he moved up in light heavyweight, it became already hard to win, because he is 168 fighter. In the fight with Gvozdyk, he could easily lose that fight. And the same with David Morrell. That was not a pure knockout. Only with Anthony Yarde it was a classic domination. And that is the reason. Because the power is different. The tension is different. The reach is different. He fought with smaller guys. Here he is the same size as his opponents. But when he fought in the cruiserweight, Ramirez is a very big guy. It was the quest for Benavidez to gain some weight, because there is 10 kilograms difference. There was a footage with Jay Opetaia when they met, and we can see it clearly that Jay Opetaia is much bigger than David Benavidez, and for this time it will be hard to fight with such a big machine, because Jay Opetaia is a real cruiserweight. He even fought in heavyweight. Benavidez is the guy who was forced to move up for a big fight, and he already said that he is going to return back in light heavyweight for a fight with Bivol of Beterbiev. He is a current champion of cruiserweight. He holds 2 belts. IBF is now vacant, because Jay Opetaia went to the different promotion, where main belts are not sanctioning. This is a topic for a different video. And for now, David Benavidez can quickly collect this belt. But the problem is that he is returning now. Dmitry Bivol is going to fight with Michael Eifer. Of course, this fighter is not a problem for him, and they are already in talks for the fight with Dmitry Bivol. Benavidez belts are not vacated in light heavyweight, or he can fight with old Artur Beterbiev, who is now not dangerous for him, unfortunately, because of age. But why David Benavidez is currently the best boxer in the world? Because he is very active through the super fights. A lot of current champions made a fight, won a belt, protected it, and gone. Benavidez is challenging his fate. For a very short time he went from the super middleweight to cruiserweight. That is very risky because the gap is much bigger than it was in lighter categories. That is not the same as Shakur Stevenson is showing. This fighter is fighting carefully, and his fighting style is safe. There are no knockouts. He is carefully taking everything by points. We are not disrespecting Shakur Stevenson, but fighters must be able to sell their fights. As Devin Haney, who also carefully took all his fights. But with Brian Norman Jr. he showed a very bright performance. With the fighter who was a stylistic nightmare for him. A very good example is Ryan Garcia, who was able to sell his fights, and still is loved by fans, because he is charismatic. And even when he lost 2 fights he returned back stronger. And now he is a WBC welterweight champion. David Benavidez didn't show bad fight. He is always destroying his opponents. And what is the most important, he is making super fights. Since the fight for an interim WBC title in super middleweight, he fought only with champions or former champions from different categories. Why this thing is very important. Just have a look what happened with UFC. Despite that Canelo Alvarez concerned that boxing was always popular than UFC. UFC was very popular in 2010s. Because every single fighting card was bright. And all of fighters were superstars. Despite that they were not champions. The roster was very strong. They thought that UFC is the brand. And it is not necessary to promote them. Because this is the privilege to fight here. But what happened when all superstars retired? Even John Onyx said that this year fighting cards were not good and strong. This is the clear example what is happening when the fighter is not a side A.